Our show's what you know. We'll always watch TV. And if you think we can't, we'll watch more and you'll see. That's why the people of the web believe in Jim from Las Vegas and Jakob from Sweden.
Shows what you know, your television podcast. I'm Jim from Las Vegas.
I'm Jakob from Sweden, and I would say, would that every week was Cobra Kai week. Would that every week we could rant about the Acolyte. Last week was famine. This week, feast, as we dig into the relevant TV news of the week. The new shows, the new things that are coming up. I think it's mostly going to be The Boys, Cobra Kai, and the Acolyte. But we got some other goodies for you as well. We'll keep you posted what's happening out there in the world of TV.
Yes, we have a quick news drop, and then we'll be discussing. We have a real quick what you've been watching, and then, of course, Cobra Kai just dropped part 1 of their 3-part final season. There are 5 episodes. It's going to be 15 episodes total. I know it's convoluted. We got 5 episodes, then another 5 episodes in November, and then another 5 episodes sometime next year. And, of course, The Acolyte just finished up the first season. We'll be discussing the finale. We will not be getting into spoilers on any of the shows until there's a warning. So if you haven't watched any, you can hang out and hear spoiler-free discussion. So real quick, let's just get right into it. Quick news thing that I wanted to talk about. We weren't going to really get into the news, but this caught my eye. I didn't realize that Tim Robinson of I Think You Should Leave fame and is the co-creator Zach Kanin. They already had a comedy pilot order. It's called Chair Company. It's for HBO. But they did announce some casting for it, so it's becoming more and more of a real thing. I mean, if this is like a true pilot thing where maybe they just never pick it up and this never becomes a thing, that doesn't seem to be the case. But Lake Bell, Sophia Lillis, who was in the movie It, and then Lou Diamond Phillips, of course, of La Bamba fame, are all going to be in the show. The show's called The Chair Company, and the quick log line, it just basically sounds like an I Think You Should Leave sketch, which is great news to me, is after an embarrassing incident at work, a man finds himself investigating a far-reaching conspiracy. Okay. So they kind of leave you with that. I know it's just a real quick thing, and I know sometimes these are so in the future, it's hard to really get excited, but I Think You Should Leave. If the memes are any indication, people online love I Think You Should Leave. So more Tim Robinson, good news in my book.
Yeah, I think you should meme things about I Think You Should Leave, that is. If you're not familiar, it's a sketch comedy show that is funny, which is like the one thing you need really for one of them. I really enjoyed it. At one stage, a friend of mine was like, "Oh yeah, I really enjoyed the first few seasons of this," and then I was like, "Wait, does this guy just yell? Is this guy just yelling?" And I don't think that's true. I think it is very funny, but a lot of the comedy comes from people like freaking out and yelling at each other, or like playing something super straight in a very strange situation, or vice versa. It's very absurd, the things they get up to. So I was excited to hear that it's a plot-driven thing, right? It's a show about one thing. It's not a sketch thing, because I really want to see how does that insane humor that they've sort of nailed for seasons and seasons, how does that translate into something that's more plot-driven?
Yeah. I mean, even though I love the show, I could totally see one of the best things about the show is that the episodes are about 15 minutes long. And that's a really nice, short, no commitment. You watch a few sketches, maybe one isn't that great, but then 2 of them are awesome. But if you do watch, if you binge all the seasons in a row, which you could probably do in 2 hours or something like that, it will get to be a bit much after a while, because you're like, all right, guys are yelling again. But I think
that's exactly what I did. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you could still do that, but I'm just saying it's nice. Just watch a couple here and there. You don't need to sit and watch it all, because I mean, with comedy in general, if you get used to someone's style, you could start to see a little bit of repetition. So I think that's fairly normal, but you can't deny that that's very much their style. I was shared with me this week, actually. someone shared me a video of like a video essay kind of on I Think You Should Leave about how it's popular with millennials and Gen Z because
Society's falling apart.
yeah, it's because it's about anxiety. Like every character is insecure and anxious, which I don't disagree with, but I think most comedy does kind of come from that, at least the stuff that I like, but maybe that is why I like the show so much. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, that's an interesting. I would watch that / make that video. It sounds like the type of bullshit I would come out with. But yeah, no, I mean, all comedy has to have someone who there has to be some level of insecurity. There has to be like some prestige that can't be lost. That is the core of so much comedy. If it's just someone falling in a hole, that's not funny. But if it's someone falling in a hole, pretending like they're not falling in a hole, no, I'm actually fine. Oh, you're bleeding. That's a sketch, right? Like that's the base of so much comedy. So I do understand why, but like, yeah, it's a very strange take. I don't know what the 55 tater tots has to do with modern anxiety or whatever. If you've seen that sketch, that meme, but yeah, no, I will watch The Chair Company. I will keep watching the show, and I will also I will watch that video essay as well, just for good measure.
Well, I mean, I would retort, although I guess maybe this is more than someone falling in a hole, but one of the funniest videos I've ever seen online is a person that's riding either a motorbike or a moped of some sort, and they skid and fall off their bike, but they skid across the ground into a sewer hole. So
into a what?
Into like basically like a sewer hole or like a drainage hole. It's one of the funniest videos I've ever seen, and I think about it sometimes because the person, like their bike's going too fast, so they like kind of skid and fall, but then they slide across the ground into the hole. It's almost like a game of pool, if you will.
Well, another aspect of comedy is the unexpected, I suppose. So, but if you're writing a comedic character, then it has to have that something to lose, is all I'm saying. If he said, hey, watch this sick trick right before he did that, that'd be
even funnier.
Then it would just be impressive because you'd assume he did it on purpose. Then he would pretend he did it on purpose, and that's comedy.
All right. So then, real quick.
What TV shows have you been watching? Tell me,
so yeah, I mean, outside the obvious, although I thought I understood the assignment, but apparently I didn't. I thought Jakob was going to be backing me up on this, but The Boys just finished season 4. Have you watched any episodes of The Boys since we last talked? I think it was last week. You said you were still, your last thing was someone's dick getting lasered off.
I just parked up in that episode. I'm hanging out there. I'm enjoying the ambiance, really. No, I haven't finished season 4 of The Boys yet. But you're here to tell me if I should, so I'm looking forward to that.
Well, I mean, I would definitely say it's worth finishing. I can't really disagree with most of the discussion around this season. This season's been, a lot of people feel it's been a little uneven. And a little bit more on the nose. The Boys has always been on the nose, but it's been like, extra on the nose this particular season. And I think that it sets things up in a nice way for a final season. Like it does position things and get things like where it feels like, all right, we're heading towards a climax here, which is good. But it's hard to not feel that a lot of things were like spinning their wheels, or I don't want to, a waste of time is too, I don't want to be that negative, but like some things are like, oh, okay, so why'd we do that for so long, to get to this point? But
yeah, some of the chat we had discussing just the first 3 episodes was like, this is a lot of side plots already that aren't that interesting, where I think we were pretty engaged in the main narrative, but we were like, I guess there's a lot of other stuff happening. So you're saying, did those things kind of like come to a head, or is everything being thrown to the next season to resolve, or how are you sitting with that discussion now that you finished the season?
Well, I mean, I'm a sucker for a good song montage that's like it's not necessarily a cliffhanger, but it's like, ooh, these things are happening now, and let's see where that goes. And TV's great at that. I mean, some of the best season finales ever have just a song montage of a song montage mixed with a voiceover of a character speaking, and then things are happening. But then again, I guess that's a little manipulative because it's like, even though I'm excited about that, I'm like, oh, okay, where was this feeling through most of the season? I didn't quite have it. I mean, I know I sound down on it, but I still like the show enough, even though I have some criticisms here and there. And again, like, they bring in these Gen V characters. I guess I wouldn't say you necessarily have to watch Gen V, but even I watched it, but I watched it so long ago I forget. And when I see these characters, I'm like, oh, I can't imagine if I never watched that show, would I understand like what the hell is happening right now? So I don't know. I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited for the next season, although I'm a little concerned with, again, having spinoffs, and if this is something where they're finishing up The Boys, but they're going to continue to do spinoffs, then are they just eating their own lunch in a sense where like they have to like, you know, kneecap their own series finale because we have to get into the spinoffs? I guess we'll have to see. But that's also a concern I have with Cobra Kai. Not necessarily that Cobra Kai has actually done spinoffs yet, but they're always talking about that, which makes me concerned on, like, I don't want to hear about when you're like, hey, we're going to wrap this up. Everything's coming to a head, but who knows what we'll do in the future. No, don't tell me about any of that. Just tell me you're going to finish your story.
Yeah. Well, I understand that totally, but is it, like, do we know other spin-offs are coming? I know they're making more Gen V, but are there ones that are actually in production or pre-production, or like how sure are we about this?
I honestly don't know, but my main thing is just knowing that. I mean, I know they did like an animated show, which I've never watched.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that actually is like canon storyline stuff or if that's more prequel things. Like, I don't know how that plays out. But just the fact that they have Gen V, are they going to be wrapping that up with this show, or is that show gonna continue?
You're kind of saying it doesn't matter anyway because they keep saying it, which means your attention is split and you might like, drag things out even if you're coming. Like the whole positive of hearing that they're going for a finish is like, wow, can't wait for this super satisfying finish. So it's like, are you going to intentionally leave things open or not? Like how good can the finish be if you want to keep writing stories in this universe? And the answer is it can be very good. But yeah, if your attention is split, if you're feeling a little like up and down on the season, I understand where you're coming from. But do you have how clearly do you even remember like season 3 of The Boys at this stage? Like, I was going to ask you how you would rate this season against previous seasons, but I was like, season 3 is a bit of a blur for me, to be honest. So I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I'm in the same boat. I was reading up a little bit on just people's reactions, and someone pointed out, I mean, I don't know how like on point this is, but like in season 2 even there was stuff when they brought in, you know, Giancarlo Esposito's character, who was like the head of Voight or whatever, and he had this line where he was like, you know, people mistake us and think that we're a superhero company, but we're not. We're a pharmaceutical company. But then I wonder if like they pivoted, because they never really went down that path. It's all about superheroes. But I wonder if they pivoted from that, because then that was like kind of, that aired in 2020. And then, you know, with like pharmacies and like vaccines and stuff, is that a thing you want to then start to explore and tap into as far as who's the villain here?
But I feel like The Boys is such a close, twisted mirror of reality, like this season especially, that you could easily see them leaning into that and going like, there's a pandemic and Voight has the cure, but the pandemic was created by Voight. Like, that's like a season we all memory hold. That could have happened that season, 2.5, and we all just forgot about it.
The only reason why that wouldn't happen, though, is because even though, yes, The Boys is very now and they play with those things, that plays to a different crowd than what The Boys wants to play to. Because that would play to the people that more so the side that they're lampooning. Like, they don't want to, that would be giving ammo almost of like YouTubers that make their conspiracy predictive programming videos. Even though some stuff you probably still could use, but I mean, that would almost be too like they would probably consider that dangerous,
I'd say it'll be a spin-off. Just mark my words. We'll get it in a spin-off. Yeah.
It could be. But then, yeah, you're right. So going back to what you're saying, like, maybe I should have rewatched the show, but yeah, I didn't.
We can't rewatch every show just because it
No.
takes years for seasons. Come
Yeah.
on, come on.
But now it wasn't that clear in my head. I think I rewatched some of just the finale of the previous season, but like season 1 and 2, and yeah, most of 3 are definitely a blur going into this season.
Yeah, I get you. Okay, well, sounds like an endorsement, but not like I need to run out and watch it right now, and I'm a real asshole because I hadn't watched it. You have other things to insult me over, so maybe this isn't the one. But you're saying, like, I would be, I will definitely watch this because I want to know how The Boys ends. I'm gonna watch the last season of The Boys. I'm gonna finish this season of The Boys. But yeah, it didn't pull me along, and I think that has a lot to do with the pacing more so than anything else. Because a lot of what I watched so far, I really liked. It's like the opposite of I think you should leave 15-minute episodes. It's a quick watch or whatever. This is not a quick watch.
No.
But yeah, I am still looking forward to watching the rest of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess this still counts, but
What TV shows have you been watching?
oh my, wait.
Tell me I gotta know.
This is actually perfect because that's like a Johnny Lawrence banger, if you will, because Cobra Kai what season is this? Season 6?
Yeah, I mean, I keep mixing it up, to be honest. I was about to say, like, The Boys, season 5 or whatever. But yes, this is...
Okay, yeah. Cobra Kai
6.
season 6, part 1
1.
of 3. So annoying and whatever. But, in classic Netflix fashion, this was all dropped at once. I think I did watch it in a day.
Mm-hmm.
I did just like, because these are about 30-minute episodes roughly. And I have thoughts. I'm not, I mean, I'm kind of mostly mixed as far as like an overall show, like overall like season or however, like lack of a better word to describe these 5 episodes is, but I'm still like excited that the show's back and I'm excited to see these characters again. They kind of, I'm not excited when it was shot, when we're hanging with Kreese and, with that whole dojo, I'm like zoning out. And when we're doing flashbacks, I liked the flashbacks when they did them way back in like season 3 or whatever it was. But now it's like, I don't need this anymore. And that's when I'm like zoning out. Or actually, I mean, a lot of the adults, even though I love Daniel, I love Johnny, but we're kind of treading the same ground over and over again with those characters. And surprisingly, I'm more in when we're with the kids.
That is very surprising, Jim. Just in general, not necessarily based on these episodes. But, if you don't know, me and Jim have a Cobra Kai podcast. It's called No Mercy, a Cobra Kai Kickback. And we've discussed all the episodes of Cobra Kai. But season 5, I mean, it's kind of similar to The Boys or to most shows in a way, in that it's hard to keep up your storytelling momentum. Season 5, we did like 1 episode to discuss the whole season, whereas previous ones, we've done like in-depth discussions of every single episode. But we were kind of like, yeah, we don't, because they drop it all at the same time anyway, right? So we were like, we'll just do this 1 episode, whatever. And we have both been feeling a little bit down on Cobra Kai in general, because the heights of Cobra Kai, the peaks of Cobra Kai are so high to us because we're both big fans of the Karate Kid. And if you don't know, I mean, very brief summary, but it's a spin-off from the Karate Kid, right? But it's kind of following the bad guy's dojo, but then they're friends with the good guy. It's fucking great. It's a great show. It's extremely cheesy. And now we're here at season 6, the last season. So yeah, I also have thoughts, but I think maybe I'm a bit more positive than you. I noticed, one thing about Cobra Kai is because it's so cheesy, it's kind of tough to get back into. It's kind of, you really need to like dive headfirst back in. There's some rough
True.
expository dialogue in the first episode. Like some of the first lines are along the lines of like, I wrote this one down. With Sam applying to college and Anthony starting high school, is now really the best time to be entering the kids in a world karate tournament? And it's like every single one of those things is something the other person would already know. You're only saying that for the benefit of the audience, and like but at the same time, that's what allows them to move the plot at a pretty big speed, because these are 5 episodes, and each episode has a lot of plot movement happening in it. I know you said we're spinning wheels because we're kind of retreading similar emotional beats that we've seen previously, but there were several times where I'm like, fucking hell, a lot has happened in just this one episode. I felt that multiple times going throughout this one. And honestly, first episode, I was like, oh, this is all a bit cheesy. Second episode, I was all in. I was fully back into it. I was like, Cobra Kai's back, baby. So that was kind of my experience in a nutshell.
Yeah, I didn't quite have that because the second episode was a lot of Kree stuff, and I was just not I was not into it. But also, I mean, this show is doing the classic TV thing, and something I've talked about before, where not necessarily like last season ended on a cliffhanger. It was almost like the opposite problem. Like usually, what TV would do. Especially when I was growing up watching shows on, that were like 20 episodes or whatever, they'd always come to this huge finale that would end on a cliffhanger. And then the first episode the next season was just undoing the cliffhanger like completely. Mm-hmm. So this has a similar problem because I honestly feel like they wrapped up the show in season 5 because there must have been a question that maybe we won't come back. And that's kind of the problem. It's one of the problems with season 5. I mean, not that it's bad that it ends in a way that could almost be a finale, because it totally could. But then the first couple episodes here are all about undoing all of that stuff as much as they can. Because they're like, oh shit, now we gotta figure out how to get these things back in motion so we can make a season of television again. So yeah. I mean, most of my stuff are they're nitpicks to maybe a little bit more than nitpicks. But yeah, maybe it's just that I'm not, like you had mentioned, maybe I'm just not back in that headspace again. I almost want to rewatch season 5, and maybe I'll like it a little bit more than my initial watch. Because I came away with that, like, with kind of a bad taste in my mouth. I didn't really enjoy that season. I'm more positive here for sure. But it just, I don't know. They're missing the mark on certain things. And part of it is because some of these characters there's like too many characters. That was also a problem in season 5. And so like Miguel, who I've said from the beginning is the heart and soul of this show. Yeah. He doesn't have as much to do anymore. I mean, he has a whole thing going on with trying to get into Stanford. But that's really it. We don't spend much time with him, really. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to get too spoilerish yet in this. Did you have anything else you wanted to add about it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess Stingray's now the heart of the show. Just fucking roll with the punches.
Yeah.
Stingray shows, this is not a spoiler, but Stingray shows up at one point and is just like, come on, man, get your mojo back. And I don't think you need to rewatch season 5. I think that would be to the detriment. I think you should rewatch the first season. And then you're like, fuck yeah, this show's great. Then go back to the season 6 and kind of skip the rough part in the middle, because I don't know. I did not expect to like this as much as I did. And don't get me wrong, there is plenty of cheesy lines throughout that will outright like made me laugh. Several of the lines that were like, this is not a spoiler, but there's one line that's like, do me a favor, one bad boy to another. But he says it completely straight. Like there's not, he's not like,
but that's
it's
great,
not self-deprecating. Yeah, but I still, it made me laugh. But then I enjoyed the sheer fan service of that scene as well, which we can talk about in the spoiler section. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of clunky stuff like that. But then to me it's balanced out by lines like "Bitch, don't you know I know karate," which is in the trailer, and the moment is sick. I did not expect to love that moment in the show, and it that was episode 2, and that's I swear Kyler brought me back into it. Like, that was the line where I was like, "Oh shit, this is badass." And now they're in college fighting, and I'm like, I guess that it kind of recaptured
I loved all that stuff.
It recaptured the child within me, the Karate Kid within me, Jim. So yeah, it just kind of worked for me, I guess.
Well, I guess you're right, because I guess I forgot that stuff was in season 2. But if you remember our trailer reaction, I was already hyped for that line, for that moment.
I do remember. Yeah.
And maybe that's where I'm coming from, where I'm saying I like a lot of the stuff when we're with the kids, because especially in that episode, I was tuned in when they're doing their college visit more so than some of the other stuff that was happening.
Yeah, for sure.
But also, none of my problems are with the cheesiness, because I'm about that life. So, that's cool to me. It's just some different like character things and like, where they're going or what they choose to focus on or what they kind of retreat a little bit that we've already kind of seen. I mean, I'm surprised. Well, I'll wait till we get into spoilers.
Cool. Yeah, well, we can say spoiler free that like this season is, you're right in that in a sense it doesn't make sense that this is the final season. Like, it should. The All Valley has always been the world championships of the Karate Kid, of Cobra Kai. It's always been the most important karate competition in the world. The All Valley tournament, even though that is just like in California, right? So the first Karate Kid film, they do like, it all climaxes at that fucking karate tournament. The second Karate Kid film, they go off to Japan and have an actual fight to the death. And in the third one, they're like, hang on, I think we need to go back to this tournament. I think the tournament, the All Valley, is actually what matters. So the fact that the fifth season, the previous season, finishes with like, this is the All Valley, this is the final All Valley, we've done a bunch of them, and like this is one is a big deal for all these reasons, that should be the end. So what they're focusing on now is, because you won the All Valley, you're now going to enter into a world karate tournament. So like it's introducing this new next level kind of world championships for teens, I guess, in this season. So it's kind of, that's the driving plot, and the end of these 5 episodes, I don't think this is a spoiler either, but like, as you can imagine, this is kind of leading us into that, and then the climax of the show will obviously be getting into that tournament, which should be the next part, which is coming out in November, I believe.
Yeah.
And then the
November.
third part is early next year. So I think that's it for the spoiler-free section. I have lots more thoughts, but we should probably give a little spoiler warning for the first 5 episodes of Cobra Kai, and we're going to talk about the Acolytes episodes 7 and 8 after that as well. So stick around for that, or check out the time codes if you want to hear that, but don't want to hear Cobra Kai spoilers. Ayo, this is AI-generated bullshit. AI-generated bullshit by AI Jakob. Here we go. Spoiler alert, we're gonna spill the beans. No turning back, no living in your dreams. We'll reveal secrets and we'll blow your mind. Darth Vader was dead the whole time, and in The Sixth Sense, Bruce Willis was that kid's dad. Dumbledore killed Snape, made all the kids sad. Man, you can't control these spoiler bars, and the Planet of the Apes was actually Mars.
You can't say we don't give you quite a warning before we get into spoilers. You have so much time. Some shows are like, we're going to talk about spoilers right now, and then immediately they're like, here's the biggest spoiler. Like if you're doing dishes or something, you don't even have time to go over and like turn your thing off.
The problem is it's such a vibe. You're going to get into the song, and then all of a sudden Johnny Lawrence dies, and you're like, ah.
Yeah. So yeah, spoilers for the first 5 episodes of season 6 of Cobra Kai. And maybe this is something you will get into, but I thought the first thing you would have an issue with is Daniel once again has a Miyagi crisis. And
yeah,
it's like, here we go again. And I don't usually have a problem with that, but I mean, call me a guy that's upset about Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, but don't try to change Mr. Miyagi to me. Please don't retcon Mr. Miyagi.
So you're Daniel's son. You are Daniel's son,
yes,
basically.
I am. Yeah. I'm very much so. I mean, I'm not fully against it. Like, obviously, Mr. Miyagi's not a perfect man, like Daniel and myself think. But I mean, I guess I gotta give them more time because they haven't wrapped. This is something that's not fully developed yet. There's going to be more going on here. Initially, I was like, is that really it? Like, because it brings up in one episode and then it kind of doesn't go anywhere, but it does become like a through line. And they do leave us on like a little dangling thread of that Mr. Miyagi was in this world's karate tournament with his headband, and it's got blood on it as well. So who knows? But I don't know. It's so far, it's just not sitting right with me. I'm not loving what they're doing with this, and the fact that it somehow is becoming like it's not the only thing, but it's part of the rift with him and Johnny. And then also, I don't know, like they used to have such a great, they towed such a great line of Johnny's stupidity. And I don't think they can do that anymore for some reason. I don't know how they lost it. Like the moment when Johnny is talking about starting his own dealership, like I get it, kind of sounds funny, but to me, it's like you're making him like a complete buffoon. Like he just thinks he's gonna like you're passing the line of it being he's an aloof person that's stuck in his own time, and that's what's funny, to just a guy that's a complete dumbass. And that's when I'm like, all right, what is going on? I did enjoy that at least he didn't get. I thought like, oh, here we go, he's gonna get fired, but he didn't. So it was just played for laughs, if anything. Because even that whole dispute, that whole conflict didn't quite work for me, where Johnny was like, you're making me work when I should train the kids, when he just trained the kids. It also didn't feel like Daniel was really being that ridiculous. Like if they put a little bit more on Daniel that he was purposely trying to shovel work on him because he didn't want to work with the kids, it would have felt more like a conflict. I don't know. I'm scattered a little bit, but these are the initial things that popped in my head as like, what are they doing?
Yeah, I understand. I think that Johnny saying he's going to go start his own dealership is prime Johnny Lawrence behavior. We'd see that in earlier seasons. The only problem is he's only like hired the previous episode. Like that's the only issue, and we haven't seen him do the job at all. If we saw him sell like one more car, I'd be like, well, yeah, that totally adds up, but no.
You bring up a great point. We don't even see him sell the car. Why do we not see him sell the car?
Oh, the one. Camera... Oh, yeah, the one that he's test driving. That one should have been sold. Yeah, for sure. But so if you've just snuck into the spoiler section and you don't know what we're talking about, so Johnny Lawrence gets a job at the car dealership. He does sell one car. That's how he gets the job. But you're talking about the test drive he does. I'm talking about
the first one because we don't even see it. That's the thing. They trick us. We don't see it. I get that there's a dramatic angle because Daniel goes to talk to his wife, and then you hear the gong and you find out a car's been sold, and then we cut back and it's Johnny's car, and the lady's like, he was so sweet. But I feel like that would have been more effective if we saw him do it, even if he bumbles into it, like Inspector Gadget's his way. But we don't see it happen. Why do we not see it happen? We should see it.
I also had a problem with that scene, though, a slightly different one. Off screen he sells a car, and then the lady is talking about it, and she has the lines that she says. I didn't write them down, but they're so obvious for the plot. There's a few of these throughout the episodes. The line is so clearly written to advance the plot that I thought that Johnny Lawrence, the character, had planted her, that she was an actor there to pretend to buy the car so that he would get the job, because the line is so ridiculous. So I also can't say I like the way they handled that scene.
I think that's right as well, because it felt like a setup and there was going to be a joke, like a punchline where it was going to be like, yeah, he sold a car, but he sold it for $50 or something like that. You know, it was going to be something ridiculous. I feel like it would have been more effective. And again, this is not a big deal, really. Like, I get this doesn't make the show bad, but I feel like the arc that we're seeing is how Johnny's becoming more of a responsible person, or finding the balance, if you will. So we've seen him be a bumbling idiot for so long that it would have been nice to see this moment here where he does again, and he could bumble into it. He could be like making references to Van Halen or something, whatever it might be. But I almost feel like that's like harder to do. So they just did the thing where like it was almost the punchline. So yeah, and the fact that then he's dumb and thinks he could start his own dealership like an episode later, when we're just seeing him like he didn't learn the lesson. Like he's supposed to learn the lesson that he almost tried to fight the realtor and then didn't get a car. I mean, didn't get a house. And then they do this dangling thing where the guy, like, I didn't hate this moment, but when the nerdy guy was like, "You're Johnny Lawrence, man!" Like, oh my god.
Okay, so let me if I can interrupt, just let me go back to the car thing. So he sells this first car, then he's giving someone else like a test drive, but he doesn't want to do it, and he like makes him drive fast, like, "Don't be a pussy, drive faster." And he like goes off and basically is in the woods at karate training, and the guy's just there. And that should have just ended with him selling the car. Even if we didn't see the first one, we should have seen that one get sold, because we should see how he basically alphas him into it, where it's I think a relatively boring looking car, but he's getting him to like drive it fast and feel the speed, and he's Johnny Lawrence, put on some cool tunes, and at the end he should be like, "Oh wow, yeah, no, I want to have this feeling. I want to capture this Cobra Kai like feeling of owning a cool car, even if it's not a cool car, and kind of see how he can be competent at his job that way." We didn't get that either. So yeah, no,
actually that's a great point. That would have actually, at the very least, I wouldn't have been as nitpicky about his initial sale if that happened. Like even something like you said, he alphas him into it, or even the fact that they're like trudging through the woods. He's like, "Oh man, I used to go to the hiking with my dad. Like this is great." Like even again, if he Inspector Gadgets and by dumb luck things happen, it would have, I don't know, it would have been more effective. But
you mentioned Little Stevie, so I also made a note on Little Stevie, who is basically Johnny Lawrence is trying to rent a house, and then he ends up like the owner notices it's Johnny Lawrence. And I have to say, someone who saw Johnny Lawrence in the 1983 championship, the All Valley Championship, still being all about it is both fucking insane and the most Cobra Kai thing ever. Like, there has no basis in reality, except, as we all know, they're living in a karate show. Kreese would be like, yes, of course, because he knows they're living in a karate show where the All Valley is the most important thing in the universe. So it's like a kid that saw, like, imagine if you saw someone win a championship in any sport that's like a couple of years older than you in school, and you still think about it. I guess maybe that's a thing in like American football, if the whole town is about one team and you always remember that one thing. And to Little Stevie, that was the thing. But like Johnny Lawrence should be rolling in sponsorship money for still, if that was actually the case. But it's such a Cobra Kai thing because we're all Little Stevie. We are all that little kid who still are all about the All Valley and the 1983 and 84 championships.
No, I buy it though. I do buy that moment. But then they kind of have a line of dialogue that's like, it didn't work out. So then I'm kind of like, don't get what well, I guess I'm sure it'll come back later and he'll get the place. But they do have a line of dialogue of like, you didn't get the place or something, or didn't, I don't know. He's supposed to come back later. We'll see. But going back to let me go back to the first episode. Best moment of the episode is when Miguel punches that baseball at the batting cage when they're fighting.
Okay.
But it's also tied to kind of one of the worst things about the episode is that why are they bullying these black brothers into being their friend? It's the weirdest thing that happens. For people that don't know, we have Kenny, who was the bullied kid that found Cobra Kai. He was bullied by Daniel's son. And then he found Cobra Kai.
Not to be confused with Daniel-san.
Yes. And then he found Cobra Kai, and then he found that inner confidence. He became tougher, and then he became the bully, which is a classic Cobra Kai thing. And then, that played out how it did. Cobra Kai disbanded the last season, and he has a thing with Robbie because Robbie knows his older brother who is in juvie with him. So now Robbie keeps trying to talk to Kenny to like apologize or make it up to him, or like, he wasn't there for him. And it's weird how this plays out because Kenny's brother shows up, but they're not being absurd at all. Like it'd be one thing if Kenny's brother was like, "I'm gonna kick your ass, Keen," or whatever. Like if they were being really like trying to start shit with Robbie, that's one thing. But they're just like, hey, just leave us alone. they're asking a very simple thing, like, just leave us alone. We're trying, we're getting our family back together. We don't need any of this. And then Robbie shows up, and then Miguel and Sam and fucking Tori show up, and like Sam and Tori bond over bullying these black kids. Like, it's really weird.
I'll read you my note verbatim. This is my first note in episode 1.
Yeah.
What the absolute fuck is Robbie's deal with Kenny? He should clearly just fuck off. Like,
yes,
he's told in very like reasonable language. Because so Robbie's like, I feel bad that I guess Robbie feels bad. He lured Kenny into Cobra Kai or whatever, and then that ended up as a negative. But then it's like, oh, Kenny doesn't want to talk to me. So what? That's fine. That's fine if he wants to move on. Cobra Kai doesn't exist anymore, so he's no longer... you don't have to rescue him from Cobra Kai. He's no longer in Cobra Kai. He's playing fucking shooting games at the arcade, and that's okay. And Robbie keeps trying to talk to him, and then his brother comes up and is like, yeah, he doesn't need you anymore. I'm out of juvie. Mm-hmm. I'm looking after him. Everything's chill. Fuck off. And... clearly, Robbie should just fuck off. And they have a conversation, the karate children, and they're like, we have your back no matter what you do, Robbie. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then they go over and basically antagonize them into a fight. I don't even remember the specifics, but of course they get into a fight because they have to have a fight in every episode. But yeah, so contrived, so bonkers. And by the end of the episode, Kenny joins Miyagi-Do. Why the fuck would he do that?
Exactly.
Because his brother is the one who's like, you know what? Those kids made sense, which is, I guess it's the only reasonable way to get to the end point, but it doesn't make sense that he would have that reaction. Although I did, so I kind of like the moment where Kenny's on the ground and he's like about to grab a baseball bat and go ham. So you're like, okay, he's about to give in to his anger. His brother is like, this is how you end up in juvie. I don't want that for you. Maybe you should do some meditation or whatever the fuck. Sure. That makes sense. It's just like the lead up to it, as you pointed out, makes no fucking sense at all.
Yeah, I mean, if they're getting at some underlying, like he still has these anger issues, and it's, I could see how that's Robbie's fault. Like, I do understand, but it's the way it plays out is so bizarre because, again, they're being so rational. They're just saying, look, please just leave us alone. And then they're like, no. And, like, it ties into how, like, Sam and Tori are like friendly but not really. Like, well, like they just won't talk to each other. Like, that's the whole thing. But they bond over bullying these brothers. But then again, I love because they're fighting in the batting cages, and at one point the baseball gets pitched by the machine, and then Miguel turns around and he punches the baseball, and I'm like, that moment rocks. Episode 2,
Oh wait, sorry, I'm gonna. I have another thing on episode 1. Yeah, which is. You did point out that the season does sort of retread some ground, but one of the things that I liked about it is that the first episode very quickly sets up a conflict between Chosen and Johnny, and it's like Chosen and Johnny are going to fight to be able to name the dojo because they might need to rebrand or whatever, and that is very much retreading ground, right? Like, it's weird that Chosen is so aggro, he has his reasons, Johnny's being Johnny, and it's like Daniel-san's trying to calm things down. But then, in the end, they do fight, but they fight as friends because Johnny does a little speech at the end, and his speech actually did get me a little bit. The fight was a fake out. We're not repeating shit. That was my line then anyway. I was like, we're not actually repeating this thing, because I feel like in a previous season they would have just fought over the name, and then there would have been a similar conflict in the next episode and a similar conflict. Instead what happens is they build that up and then puncture it, and that's not happening. And Johnny is actually joining Miyagi-Do. He's agreed to that. He's got the bonsai tree on his back. That got me. I like that. But instead it's like that was a fake out, but then we're slowly gonna simmer the actual conflict. So they are still retreading it in a bit. They're in a way they have this conflict brewing for the rest of the season. But at that stage anyway, I was like, great. I didn't expect that, actually. I expected you to fully just go ahead with this dumb conflict that you've done before, but it kind of showed the status quo of where everyone's at. And there's a few of those moments, setting aside the bullying of the two black teens, where it's like, okay, people have grown to this stage, even if we then sometimes end up repeating stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, but also that is a recurring thing they do all these episodes is they keep rekindling the beefs, but it's only done in a way it's only done in a meta way for the audience because we expect it to be a conflict, but then what they do is they keep flipping it and being like, well, no, because they do the same thing with Sam and Tori a couple times, and they kind of do it with Miguel and Robbie. Like they keep doing this thing of like, remember we used to do this? Well, we're doing it again. Like, no, we're not. Gotcha.
Yeah.
But I don't. What you're saying about the first episode, I totally do agree with, and I do love the addition of the eagle to the bonsai tree like Miyagi-Do logo. I think that was super effective and super smart. Like that's similar, like the way these creators make all the right choices in the past, like that's right in line with that. So I definitely like that.
This season also has the perfect amount of Stingray, which is one scene. I did like Stingray's scene in the first episode. I mean, I'm kind of meh on him as a character overall, but I did laugh at a few of his lines, and I was like, "Is he the heart of the show? Has Miguel passed the torch to Stingray?"
Yeah.
Small side note as well. Like, I think it was too dark in the woods when they shot that part because the footage gets really grainy in the scene with Stingray. If you rewatch, watch out for this. But it's like uneven. It's not like every shot is grainy. It's like some of the shots are grainy, and I'm like, I think they just didn't have enough light when they were shooting this, which is weird.
They probably had to try to pump it up like in post. Well, but also, I mean, the show has not fixed this. I've talked about this in the past. Like it's a weird fake looking show. Whenever they go in the pawn shop, I mean, whenever they go into any store in this show, like when they're supposed to be in a location, when they go in the pawn shop, it literally looks like a student film. Like it doesn't
look like a cartoon,
yeah. And then there's another scene. It might not be in this episode, but there's a scene when Chosen and Daniel are speaking in the garden, like the training garden, like that Miyagi-Do. And when they're doing reverse shot, and I swear it looks like they're on a green screen. Like it looks really weird and fake. And it's like I don't know if they had to do pickups or they just couldn't get to location. But the bokeh is all off, and even like the way like you'll see Chosen's shoulder or Daniel's shoulder when it's on Chosen, like that the way that blurry, it looks completely. Again, this is nitpicky stuff, but it looks so off for like a pretty major show.
Yeah, made a note on episode 3 when they have like the slumber party. Such an absurd concept, by the way. But they have a slumber party and they're in like a basement. And a lot of this show looks like a set, but that basement fully is it looks so much like a set. It's like, I know you guys can make things look real, but they're kind of choosing not to, which is weird.
But yeah, so when we get into the Kreese stuff in episode 2, like we have these flashbacks again to young Kreese and young Silver, and then we have, this the original Cobra Kai master who's also still alive. And then I think what Kreese has, like, he gets bit by the cobra and he gets to fight Johnny Lawrence in his fantasies. Like, again, I mean, this stuff on paper, this is a karate show stuff, and we've mentioned this in the past. Kreese is the only one that knows he's in a karate show, so this does fit that. But I'm just not, I don't know, I'm just not really pulled in by some of this stuff. Some of this stuff was just turning me off for whatever reason.
Well, that's how I feel about 90% of flashbacks and such anyway, as you know. So I don't blame you. For some reason, it kind of made sense to me. The fact that Johnny Lawrence is who Kreese has to fight when he's on his snakebite spirit journey makes sense as well, because they have this weird relationship, and he's like, it's a theme that keeps coming up with Kreese of like, oh, you have to kill your one weakness is this kid or whatever, even though you choked him out and then went to prison for ages. It's like, it does add up to me just with everything else the show has told me up to this point, and it's basically just like to get him in charge of the Cobra Kai team that's coming from Korea to the SWYK Kai or whatever the fuck it's called. So it adds up to me. I see why it's not the most exciting part.
But I'm with you. I loved all the college stuff. And I love that it does feel like I mean, again, this stuff feels like classic TV to me, because it just reminds me of like Buffy season 3 or something where they go and visit the college, and it's like that's where they're gonna go next season. Like they're setting up the unlikely thing to keep the cast together because they all go to the same school. But we get to see Kyler again, and I forget the other guy's name, the other big bully that Hawk beat the shit out of. And the fight itself in this is super dope. Like sometimes the fights are really good, sometimes they're a little questionable. But there's even specifically a great moment when it's like Miguel's fighting two guys at once. But like all the choreography in this fight was really cool. And it really made me laugh when because it kind of Miguel comes away with, although I don't love this lesson, but like the lesson is kind of like don't even have a backup, like just go for the gusto, which I guess is good. I mean, it's very Cobra Kai, if you will. But I love how he's like, I wish I didn't have a backup party school. I could have went to an awesome party school. That really made me laugh.
Yeah, I thought the lesson was kind of like don't sacrifice for others or something like that, or like do the thing fully for yourself. But yeah, I was still dazed from the fight. The fight was fucking great. Yeah, probably the best fight in the season so far, and also. Something about it also, just having a brawl in a college frat house, it makes so much more sense than all the fights we've had up to this point. Like the season 2 high school fight, which was like, this would have been, this is, everyone should go to jail. Everyone should go to juvie after this fight. Versus college frat house, it's just like a brawl. It kind of feels like a college movie as well. And I'm like, these characters have really grown up, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Well, that reminds me, too, of, like, because you brought up the high school brawl. Again, like, getting things just to a status quo. In the first episode, in the montage, they show Robbie coming back to school.
I know.
And it's so wild to think that Robbie would be back in the school. Like, it's so to think that Miguel went from being, like, on his deathbed, couldn't walk. Now he's walking into school. And then Robbie, the guy that they fought as he got knocked off of a balcony onto the stairs, is back in the same school as well. But, I mean, it's a TV show. I can't really hate on that too much. But it's just funny how, things got to get back to some sort of standard here.
Yeah. Getting over to episode 3, I just wrote, Johnny would have a gender reveal party. How gross. Because that's just a quick bit at the beginning. But basically, Johnny finds out they're having a daughter, him and Carmen. And that's kind of what the plot of this one is for him. Because, then he has to, like, make Tori and... why am I spacing on her name now? Jesus. Sam and Tori, they got to get on. They have a slumber party in a set, as I mentioned. And I thought the whole slumber party bit is so stupid because it's like, he's in this slumber party with 3 girls, none of which he's related to, or like at least with like, Robbie and Miguel, he has a relationship with them and everything. This is just like, hey, I'm the cool sensei hanging out at the slumber party with just 3 girls. Nobody else is here. No other adults, please. And it's so wild. But then I'm welling up when the gals start apologizing to each other. They're kind of working their way up to have a fight towards the end of the episode, but then they actually end up apologizing. And I'm like, I didn't think I would be welling up at this stage, but they got me again. So that's 2 for 2 on the episodes 2 and 3.
Yeah, and I mean, not to get too ahead, but honestly, it's wild that Tori's character gets handled the best in these episodes. Like, her arc is the most interesting. Especially coming from all I can remember in the previous seasons, like, this girl's a maniac. Like, what is going on? What are they doing with this character? Because all she was crazy. But everything comes to a nice place throughout these episodes. I mean, my only note I had for episode 3 is like, do we need Daniel to have another Miyagi crisis? Is this the one where they go and hunt down, they go to the boxing gym, or is that the next episode?
I think it's this one, but I didn't write anything on it. I kind of ignored it, but it's got to be this one. And if we didn't say, but they find a box, and the box in Miyagi's house buried, and it's like got bits and pieces, but it's got like shitloads of stuff in there, right? Like if you pause it, it's a bunch of Easter eggs or whatever. So it's very clear they choose not to fully investigate whatever he might have hidden under his house. So, but they do go into it and find out that he's like committed robbery or something and then went on the run. Is that the only thing? Because at one stage I was like, wait, are they saying he's like not actually from Okinawa, and then I was like, that doesn't make sense because Karate Kid 2 exists. So I was a little confused for a while.
Well, it's weird because it's almost like they're kind of setting it where he's old. He was older than he was, right? Like they do that, and then it's like he came to America, but then fled America. But what's so hilarious too is that they didn't change his last name. like,
oh yeah, he changed his first name to hide,
to go into hiding. And then I guess apparently he fled and maybe went to China, and that's how we got involved in this tournament. I guess again, this is developing. We'll have to see. I mean, part of me does kind of hope and knows that this will lead to some sort of boxing special move that we didn't know about from Miyagi-Do that will come into play. So, I mean, the Karate Kid fan in me is very excited to see what this new boxing special move is that we'll get to add to our repertoire. And yeah, so whatever. I mean, episode 4, Mike Barnes is back.
Yeah, well, the Miyagi box is still a mystery box. We're gonna have to wait and see. I wasn't blown away by it either way. We saw it in the trailer, and we're like, "What's gonna be in the box?" We still kind of don't know. We know, Mr. Miyagi has a dark past or whatever, but we don't really know. So,
but also, I mean, the tough thing with that too is because doesn't Karate Kid 2 already get into like how he has like a darker past? I mean, I'm trying to remember the specifics of why he left Okinawa. Yeah. But like again, because it feels like stuff we've already covered a little bit. But either way, well, again, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. I want to see how it plays out. On my initial watch, when it felt like it came up and then it was done, I was like, all right, is this done? But then it's continuing to have more elements, so we'll see.
It's just gotta lead us to the next Karate Kid. That's the only thing where he's gonna be like, "What the fuck? You worked at you met Hilary Swank?" That's gonna be the climax, I think. The only other note on this episode as well for me is like it's an insane concept that the biggest world championship of karate only announces the country a few months in advance. The logistics here are absolutely insane, and that this competition would change its concept. So it's kind of saying like, we used to have just a tournament, now we're going to have team games or whatever. They do that a few months in advance. And also, what did the dojo think? Well, they were all going to fly overseas to some mystery location that hasn't been announced yet? Who's paying for this shit? Miyagi-Do has one sponsor, the car dealership, and they're going to have to fire Johnny, fire Gadoosh, fire Adoosh, fire everyone, fire the cousin Vinny in order to afford even the 6 fucking tickets with prices the way they are. So I don't know who thought they're flying the whole team out to some location somewhere in the world. It is insane that they wouldn't have that planned years in advance.
Well, and because Daniel already does say that Miyagi-Do charges no dues. Like you could just show up and join Miyagi-Do. So it's pretty wild. Well, the more important than Mike Barnes returning in episode 4 is they have a reference to the spaghetti spill, which I love every time it gets brought up. But although I just made a note that there's a spaghetti spill reference, I'm trying to remember specifically how it gets brought up. I think, I think Daniel's talking to Daniel Jr., I think, about like being bullied or whatever. It's I think after he gets his bloody nose, and he goes to talk to him in the dojo, and he's like, oh, it's just a bloody nose. There was one time this spaghetti, and then he just cuts him off, and he's like, I don't want to hear about the spaghetti, Dad, or whatever he says.
I didn't catch that, but that is very good. That's good.
Because for those that don't know, in Karate Kid Part 1, Daniel is supposed to have a date with what's Elizabeth Shue's character's name? Now I'm spacing. But anyway, like Elizabeth Shue's character, who was Johnny's ex-girlfriend. But then he's like in the back kitchen peeking through, and he sees that like she's sitting with Johnny and his family. And of course he tries to play it up and make it seem like they're on a date. And then in the midst of everything, as he's about to leave, he runs into a guy holding spaghetti, but he's covered in way more spaghetti than could have been on those plates. It's a great classic Karate Kid moment.
Yeah. the infinite spaghetti. It's a good scene. But Mike Barnes is back. So he's been in the show previously, but now he's back. He's called in to kind of help the dojo decide who's going to go to the World Championships. So he's an impartial guy, impartial judge. I liked most of the stuff with Mike Barnes here. He's kind of
me too.
He's falling back into his hothead ways, because when we reintroduced him, he was just like kind of making and selling furniture, I believe, was kind of we always joked about him just being an elementary school teacher or something as a twist, and they kind of did a similar thing where he's just like selling furniture or whatever, but then of course, because Terry Silver was around, like his whole shop ends up burning down. I assume he gets insurance money for it because he's got a new one. But this has brought back a lot of feelings for Mr. Barnes, who used to be a real hothead, a real violent guy back in the Karate Kid 3. But yeah, so he's kind of big dogging Johnny in order to get into a fight. He's been itching for a fight for ages, and they do indeed get into a fight with a like spinning saw blade in his shop. Just this insane situation. This is where they have the line of like, favor one bad boy to another, which is so cringe and dumb, but then also they're fighting, and I'm like so hyped up to see them fight, and I'm like, I'm such a mark. Like I shouldn't enjoy this as much as I do.
It's so great when they fight. It is wild that it does seem like they're trying to kill each other at one point, because they are almost trying to push each other into the saw blade, but it's not that serious. And yeah, I mean, it's good to see Mike Barnes back. I do love that we were pretty close when we called it, because this was before anything was confirmed. I mean, we assumed he was going to be back on the show eventually, but we had always talked about, if you bring him back, just make him a regular guy, and that's kind of what they did. And yeah, he gets to, like, it's always nice to have like a specific goal. I mean, we could, as a viewer, you kind of know who's going to be going for the most part to the big tournament. Miguel's going to be going, Robbie, and then you're like, well, they're not going to leave the girls out, so at least Tori and Sam. But it's still the way this plays out with him judging and how it comes together is still pretty well done. They throw a few twists in there. I don't quite buy, and again, maybe that's because they have to do so much in so little time. I don't quite buy Johnny riding for Devin so hard, because they didn't have enough time to really spell out that bond as much as I think they probably would have liked. That's kind of my main nitpick. I'm interested to see where it goes. It's really wild that all these adults do talk about how important the kids are. I mean, especially Daniel, when they're always like, these kids, they're important. We got to raise them right. We can't let Cobra Kai, corrupt them or whatever. Kenny shits his pants in front of everyone, and no one goes to check up on him or in the next, I know there's only one episode left, but no adult has a second thought ever again to be like, oh my God, that could be a very traumatizing moment and something that someone would be bullied for, even in the utopia that is Miyagi-Do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Devin puts laxatives in Kenny's drink or whatever, so he shits his pants in front of everyone. Devin and Johnny's riding very hard for Devin to get into this thing, this tournament, and Kenny gets a lot of hate going back a couple of seasons. Kenny gets a lot of hate for being a shit character. Devin was always the worst character in my mind, not because of the actor or anything, but rather just because of the way she was written was always really flat and annoying. She's a villain. She's fully a villain this season, but she's she's a villain who has more dimensions than she's ever had, to be honest, because she's pushing herself to, like everyone else, to win this thing. So I enjoyed Devin as a character much more this season than I ever have before, which is good. But yeah, obvious total villain move. I kind of half expect that she'll drop out to leave space for someone else, because Kenny or whoever, because obviously this is a fucked up way to win this tournament, and nobody knows that she did it.
Well, here's the tough thing, is they bring in this Devin character. I mean, clearly, not to be cynical, but it's because they wanted another female character on the show. But in the next episode, they mentioned there's an offhand line of dialogue that Aisha got into UC Santa Cruz. if this was Aisha's character, it would be so much better because you would already have the foundation of the first few seasons, and then like her like wanting to please Johnny, but also wanting to get into it and like by any means necessary, like cheating for lack of a better word. I mean, like she did cheat, but like dramatically that would have been so much better. I mean, I know there may have been issues with the actress or something like that. I mean, I'm sure there were things outside of the control, but like I don't know, that's a much simpler solution I think to this is if the Devin character was just Aisha this whole time.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And that's kind of production constraints possibly getting in the way where that actually everything would have just added up in a nicer way. But I do think it adds up. I think it's an interesting it's interesting. It's a pretty good episode. I seriously thought it was going to end where because there's a lot happening in this episode. I thought it was going to end with them running into the woods, and then the final episode is going to be like capture the flag to see who gets to go to the tournament. But no, they resolve it all within that one episode, and pretty successfully so as well. And they keep mentioning how there's really only one slot open, and like that. You know that things are going to end up in a slightly unexpected way, and they managed to deliver on that pretty well, I think. So I think that's bringing us to the last episode here.
Well, it also sets up nicely with Kenny and Daniel Jr. because now, I mean, this is a classic Karate Kid, Cobra Kai, misunderstanding because Daniel Jr. is who thought is who Kenny suspects did it. Lapusso, if you will. So we'll get to see that play out. But then, episode 5, I mean, this is where we get more into some like heavy drama where Tori's mom is dead. And at first I made a note that it was kind of cornball that they showed her fist and it was like the Cobra Kai fist, like when her dead body. But they kind of go back to it like it is a thing that's used like throughout where I didn't hate it initially, but I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit like, oh my God, it's the Cobra Kai fist. But then it's used effectively. And I mean, it really comes to an emotional climax. So I was getting emotional as well. And this feels like a more, I mean, I guess this is kind of where things come to a head with Daniel and Johnny as well, but at least this feels more organic and it does make sense.
Yeah, I did notice like from the very start of the episode, I was like, this is shot different because it's like starts up with like close-ups of her face. She's in a doctor's office. It has a much more grounded, down-to-earth tone at the start of the episode, and it's kind of as we're following Tori along, we get to see that. And I was just looking up who directed it, but I guess it's the same person who directed the 4th episode. So same people, no real difference. But I did notice like, this is shot like in a much more serious tone, and we see why. And I based on our discussion earlier, I can't help but think maybe for some of it they could have used some of that mojo throughout, but it felt like they paid a lot of attention to the cinematography in a way that wasn't necessarily the case in other episodes. But basically because it kind of comes down to they're now trying to get the captains, the male captain and the female captain, and it's going to come down to these fights: the Robbie versus Miguel, and then Sam versus Tori. And these are people that have fought before, so they have their histories, but they're also friends. And you got Robbie dealing with this idea that he's already lost to Miguel. I guess twice. Although I guess technically Robbie kicked him off a ledge. So. And then, Miguel's big thing is Stanford. Like, this is going to look great on his for his extracurriculars, apparently, if he's the leader. And then, Tori's not even training because obviously she's dealing with real life, with real shit, with coming home and finding her mom dead. And then no one can get a hold of her, but she still shows up to fight, which gives Robbie kind of like that extra confidence he needs to get the job done. But then this becomes a thing of like, is she in the right headspace to do this? And Johnny thinks that she is. It'll help her work through what she's going through. And Daniel disagrees. Yeah. And they have a sort of classic dead mom flashback where like her fist,
Oh,
the
yeah.
thing they came back with the fist was like she was like clenching this bottle cap that
Mm-hmm.
Tori had given her when she was really young. That's like a magic thing to protect her until they can learn how to fight. And that's why she's so obsessed with fighting. And I'm so surprised at how well all of that works, because
Agreed.
on paper it's just as cheesy as some of the lines I've like complained at / laughed about, but it just works. And I think part of it has to do with how this episode is shot, as I mentioned, and just the way it's put together in general is very, very competent and manages to balance that more serious tone. But yeah, the way she's kind of frazzled and falling apart during the fight, and whether she should fight or not fight, it's just really good. It's just really good television. Insane that no one goes after her, much like the shitting the pants thing. Like we knew watching it, like, okay, so now she's going back to crease, even though that's kind of a dramatic move to go from this situation, but it's still like, yeah, she has nothing again. So, that's obviously she's got Robbie or whatever. But yeah, it works surprisingly well, I think. So, but I assume you didn't really buy the Johnny and Daniel fight at the end, because they get into it at the end here. And now we're like, I'll coach this tournament, but after this, I'm done with Miyagi-Do. And they have been building to that, but the way they've been building to it is a bit like the way they've always done it in previous seasons. So I assume this is what you were talking about earlier.
A little bit. I mean, I didn't mind it at this point. Like, at least, again, like it made more sense now. But it also is weird of like, yeah, fine, we'll do this one last thing and then we're done. It would be kind of like, why wouldn't you just be done? But I guess it's because the big tournament's coming up. And I thought it was really bizarre that then we're just at the tournament. Like, before the episode's even done, it's like, here we are. So like, how much time has passed? I mean, I guess it's because we have to get to that reveal, even though we know it's coming, but we have to see that Tori's with Cobra Kai now. I'm actually kind of excited that they can't spread the tournament out over 10 episodes. So I do like the idea that we're going to kind of get the tournament out of the way, and we're still going to have time to, I don't know if it's an epilogue or how they're going to handle it, but there's going to be more beyond that. So I'm excited about that, because then I'm like, oh, what are they going to do after? Because I wasn't sure if this was going to be spread out even more, and then the tournament was going to be more the last 5 episodes, but it's going to be the middle 5 episodes. And they've described this as kind of like an Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. So I guess that would make sense in that scheme of things, as far as how the like ending the show, where this tournament is more of an Act 2, and then Act 3 is going to be wrapping up everything.
I had the same thought, although I think they could spread the tournament over 10 episodes. They could do that. Hopefully not. But yeah, it'll, because they said it's not just going to be fight. It's going to have challenges or whatever. So every episode could be eliminating one person or whatever. But even so, they've made so much happen in these 5 episodes. There's been so much plot. I really don't think so. I'm just saying there's a remote possibility that maybe the finale or the finals of the tournament is in the last 5 episodes. Maybe we'll see. But I'm positive on it.
Yeah, I could see it being the next 5 episodes is the tournament, but I feel like we'd have to get to a point. It is funny that Chosen just like disappears, like he Googles Okinawa and then he disappears. I don't love his character. I mean, nothing against him, but it feels, I don't know, he feels like a little extraneous to me.
He's pretty flat. He's not very built out as a character. I did enjoy him and Johnny going house hunting together.
Yeah.
But then like his only kind of character trait is like, oh, I'm feeling a bit wild and crazy because, this person I have a crush on hasn't texted me back. And then we don't resolve that. I'm sure it'll come up next season or next.
But it's going to be a thing of like he was drunk and he called the wrong number. You know what I mean? It's going to be something so not like Kumiko is going to be like, I've been waiting for you, Chosen. Yeah. So I guess we'll see.
Do you feel any different about the season so far, having chatted about it, or you kind of what's your vibe moving forward?
I mean, whenever we talk these through, I definitely always feel more positive about it because I'm reminded of the stuff I liked.
Yeah,
and it's always nice to just kind of get off my chest things that maybe were nitpicks. But then it reminds me of the stuff I like the stuff I like more than I dislike the things that bug me. You know what I mean? And Cobra Kai, it's always good to have Cobra Kai, but I'm also like, I'm not happy they're ending, but I'm happier that they're wrapping things up, because it does feel like you can't go on forever unless you're going to make some big changes. And I don't know. I mean, are we going to have a time jump in the last 5 episodes? Like, they're all graduated, and now we got little Jenny Lawrence running around. We'll see.
That's the 2025 Karate Kid film, which we're then going to do a TV spin-off of.
Yeah.
Cobra Kai never dies, Jim. You know this. Yeah, I think that's it for Cobra Kai Part 1. Let us know if you agreed down in the comments, or showswhatyouknow@gmail.com. But I guess, do we play the jingle again? I don't know, because we need to move. I can't believe we still have another show to discuss. But let's
we
get
always
into
do
it.
this. We always didn't realize how long it's going to be. But yeah, let's just get right into the Acolyte. We've already done spoilers. The only thing.
Sorry, we're in the so the Acolyte episode 7 and 8. The last couple episodes is what we're getting into.
Yeah,
we haven't done a spoiler discussion of the Acolyte since like the early episodes either. So spoilers for all of season 1 of the Acolyte, which is a Star Wars show if you didn't know.
Yeah. Now I think the Acolyte has some of the best Star Wars action we've seen. And I was thinking that in the first episode, and then it didn't change my mind throughout the whole thing. And even like the lightsaber battles in like the finale, all very strong. Like, I guess I shouldn't say I'm surprised at the negativity, because I mean, people online are going to be negative about anything. But for the most part, outside of like the flashback episodes, I should say, should have just been one episode. Like, there's really no use. And that was the feeling I got from episode 3. I was like, this is incomplete and it feels like a waste of time. And then they revisit, do another flashback where we kind of cover a lot of the same ground with only a few little reveals. So that's the biggest gripe, comes down to that. I mean, a lot of people talk about the lore and stuff like that, but I don't really even feel it goes that much against lore. People were upset. People are also upset about Manny Jacinto being like sexual, like when he was naked and swimming and had his cock out. I mean, we don't see his cock. This isn't The Boys, but they were like, "What's this doing in a Star Wars show?" But it's like, let's get some sex going. Let's get some. This is classic ship stuff. Do you not pay attention to TV? Come on.
Yeah.
We need the villain guy that's like the mentor / bad boy, but we also like are very attracted to him and we want to fuck him. That's the whole point.
Yeah. That was the best part. Better than the action. Better than the action scenes.
Yeah.
No, that part was fine. Yeah. I cannot. I said this last week, but I cannot believe that 2 out of 8 episodes are flashback episodes. It is such a mad choice, and I kind of get what they're going for. They want to do like the last duel, or whatever. Joe Rimbo. What the fuck is that Kurosawa film called?
Yojimbo?
You showed different. Same scenes from a different perspective, but they're literally the same scenes from a different perspective. And also, they're building up kind of reveals, and I feel like I wasn't surprised by anything in the episode 7 flashback. Were you surprised by anything?
No. The only thing
I was surprised by how straightforward it was.
Yes, but also I get what they were going for. They're going for like, this was such a misunderstanding, like it didn't have to go this way. But also, then it made things kind of nonsensical. Like, he kills May's mother, but like, why was she turning into smoke in that moment? And which was seemingly turning May into smoke. But I mean, I assume we find out that it's because she was going to like teleport her away or something. But I don't know. It's done in a very sinister manner. And
if you're spending this amount of time on it, maybe explain like, I was just teleporting her or whatever when she dies.
Yeah.
You're already really putting things out there. So then I'm like, well, so it's a misunderstanding, I guess. But Saul, the Jedi Master, he's really next level in terms of irresponsible behavior. And I guess that's the point. So that's fine, because like that's what it's showing. Like, he was wrong. The Jedi was just fully wrong. There's no ambiguity, especially Saul. Like, at least, so there's two chumps fucking things up for the Jedi. It's Saul and it's the Padawan. And the Padawan really wants to go back to Coruscant. It makes very little sense to me, because I'm like, were they on this planet for years? Yeah. Did no one explain that being a Jedi kind of requires you to have patience? It's like the number one thing. And he's like, man, I hate these rocks. I don't like being in the woods. And if they had said like, we're stationed here for 5 years, then I'd be like, oh yeah, maybe they're searching the whole planet or whatever. But I didn't get that sense at all. So I was just like, why is he such a cranky teen? I guess Jedi can be cranky teen, but to the point that he's running off, causing danger and like a conflict with these witches for no reason. But it makes way less sense that Saul takes it to the next level, because he's running after this kid to catch him, and then he's like, I think they're in danger or whatever. Let's go inside. Like, I don't even, I felt like I missed some beat there that made it make sense. But it, as you said, it was all a big misunderstanding. And I'm like, you can definitely do that in one episode. You do not need 2 episodes for that, because the Jedi show up, weapons blazing, for no reason. Of course, and we're like, we're going to take your kids. Like, yeah, no shit, they freak out about it.
I mean, it was dope when they had to fight the Wookiee, because I was like, they've been building up this. The Wookiee was even a cliffhanger in an episode, and then he was dead the next time we saw him, basically. So finally, they pay that off a little bit. It was kind of funny how like, so all these witches like overtook the Wookiee's mind, and then Carrie-Anne Moss comes and like saves him, but then that apparently kills the other witches that were brain linked to him. I mean, and then they get into like there was the Force convergence, and you know, May and Osha are like technically the same person, but I mean, I guess some of that stuff that's to be more explored. Like, they leave you with questions around like what's going on with that. They kind of explain it, but they don't really. I don't have much of a problem with that too much. It was expected. I kind of expected from the jump that, you know, okay, if Osha's the light and May's dark at the beginning, that's probably going to switch, and that is what happens. But I feel like it was effective the way it played out and the way it was done. And a lot of people are complaining about the bleeding the Kyber crystal thing, I guess, in comparison to the lore, but I feel like that was done really well. And the fact that, I mean, I was really surprised that she just straight up kills Soul in the episode. It's kind of a leap to think that was the first time someone did maybe it's not supposed to be the first time that someone did a Force choke, but it's just weird to think, because like they kept talking about killing a Jedi without a weapon, but it's like these people can fly around. Like, have you never and move stuff already? Have you never tried this before?
But I did like what they were going for. Like, with all my complaints, or where it ended up with. So I'm still mixing up the names of May and Osha, but May is the one who starts out good and ends up bad, right? Or is it the other way around?
No, May's bad and ends up good, and Osha is
right. So Osha kills Saul, her Jedi master. Her lightsaber turns red. This was a good moment, because it was kind of like, oh, there's so much ambiguity. Who's really right? What is happening? And then it's like, no, you killed my mom. I'm going to kill you. And I'm like overcome with rage. And then how the lightsaber turns red. Yeah, maybe the lore is not right, but it made sense to me. A lot of dark force energy going through. It was a cool moment. I liked it. I also like that throughout the whole thing, turns out May was just fully right. May's been so right the whole time about everything. Like, yeah, maybe she shouldn't have started that fire, burned that book, but that wasn't even intentional. But like, remember when she tried to give herself up? Like, she tried to, or at least she tried to, she basically leaves when she finds out her sister's alive. She's like, oh, I'm going to go find my sister and give myself up. Then after the big fight, she's with Osha and she's like, come on, let's run off together. You and me, fuck all this stuff. And Osha's like, no, fuck you. I'm going to catch you or capture you or whatever. That's how we get into all the rest of this shit. So May was fully right. The Jedi were fully wrong. And I just am annoyed that there wasn't more to it leading up to it, because they built it up as such a mystery. And it seemed like there wasn't that much to it. But there's still these threads of like, I half expected them to merge into one person at the end. I half expected the convergence to have affected Saul's mind or something as well, because it's very weird how he's suddenly obsessed with one of these girls. How can you even tell them apart? I guess, how can he tell them apart? Because they have the same fucking force signature or whatever as well. So he's just like, no, I like this one kid, but not this other kid. And I'm so obsessed that I'm going to cause an international incident over it. But, you know, I did enjoy the ending of it. And it's just saddened me to see how the discourse continues online, because it's like, are we going to get another season? Who knows?
Well, and did you? Well, I mean, I'm sure you don't know. I mean, I barely know about this, so I doubt you. Because when they showed that alien in the cave, that's supposed to be Darth Plagueis. Oh. Darth Plagueis is Senator Palpatine's master, and kind of like one of the OG Siths. That basically his existence or him trying to cheat death is what makes Anakin Skywalker, because the Force has to balance it out. So it's weird because some people are like, you know, the initial complaint was, you know, how can you have these Sith when Darth Plagueis is supposed to be there? And then the show hints that, okay, he is there. And then they're like, well, how the fuck are you going to have Darth Plagueis in this bullshit? So we'll see. I mean, the thing is, I guess the show hasn't technically been picked up for a season 2. I actually do hope it gets picked up. Yeah, I did come out again. I mean, I have some nitpicks. I get some criticisms around it, but I think they delivered on action. They delivered on an interesting story that played around with the lore that I don't really think goes against it. And the characters are interesting. Like, I think Manny Jacinto, as the Stranger, is awesome. Or Darth Teeth, as people call him, when he's got his helmet on. And they hint at some stuff there with, is it Venestra? That's the other Jedi.
Yeah, the green one.
Yeah. And I'm interested in her dealings with the senator that is doing kind of the classic superhero thing of like, we need to register these superheroes, but he's like, we need to register the Jedi, but he's completely right.
So right. That's one of the things I wrote down as well. Like, because I guess you know what? I haven't consumed as much Star Wars media as everyone else. I haven't watched all the shows, read a bunch of books or whatever. But to me, it's such an obvious thing to make the Jedi the bad guys. But it almost seems like is this the first time? Like, it seems like such an obvious thing to have the Jedi just fully be bad. But having him be like, hey, even your Jedis are going crazy and killing a bunch of people. Maybe we should look into this. It's like such a reasonable ask that I would vote for that guy. I'd vote for that guy for senator for sure. And they keep lying. Like they're lying. Every Jedi lies in this. Like, yes, they're always lying all of the time. Like Trinity is lying. She's like, no, let's fix the lie so that you can keep being a Jedi master. That won't backfire later on. Saul, let's invent a lie to tell the Senate about how Saul was the one who was the murdering people. That won't come back to bite us in the ass. And let's really resist any external review of our dealings, because if people found out what we were doing, well, they'd know what we were doing. They'd know we were doing terrible shit all the time. All Jedis are bastards.
The only thing that I have kind of a problem with, and again, this is probably just the classic Star Wars fan in me, is I don't really want them to rope Yoda into this shit, and they kind of do hint at that because in the mid-credits thing, Venestra goes to see Yoda.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that doesn't necessarily mean she's going to fill him in on all the lies, but maybe she will. I get that now. It's like Yoda is my Miyagi, where I'm like, come on, don't be retconning this shit, making him a piece of garbage as well. Let's come on, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I'm like, fuck it. Yeah, just throw him in there. Go full Attack of the Clones. Have him bounce around with a lightsaber. They'll probably make it super cool. Yeah, no, it's a lot of, I don't know. I ended up, overall, I'm pretty negative on the Acolyte. But I think that's because I, haven't watched Obi-Wan or whatever. I haven't watched all these other terrible Star Wars shows. It's not that bad. It's got some really cool moments, but it's also not that good either, I would say.
I'm pretty on board. I got to the point where I was watching it right after Tuesday nights when it went up. I was like, oh hell, a new Acolyte. I wasn't just waiting around to watch the binge it or whatever. So I think that's, if anything, that's a good sign. So overall, I came around pretty positive. So I hope they get another season. I'm down to see what else they have in store for us.
Yeah, I do as well, actually. I mean, again, I think, we said with Cobra Kai, the parts I didn't like, the parts I liked a lot more. In this one, the parts I disliked are kind of leaving a stronger impression, to be honest. But there's still a lot of parts I liked, and I see a lot of the potential because it's kind of like they built it around a mystery that wasn't really a mystery, and now that more things are out in the open, I'm like, I want to see this creative team do more stuff in this universe and see what they come out with. So I also hope for a second season.
Oh, yeah. Well, like you said, we had so much to talk about, so might as well just wrap it up at this point. Thank you if you made it this far.
Another
what
long
are your
boy.
thoughts? Yeah, what are your thoughts on The Boys or Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 1 or The Acolyte Season 1? Let us know at showswhatyouknow@gmail.com.
Or leave a comment at youtube.com/showswhatyouknow. Follow us on TikTok at showswhatyouknow. And, just the website, showswhatyouknow.com. You can find our back catalog. Hear us complain about other seasons of Cobra Kai on No Mercy, a Cobra Kai Kickback. There's so much stuff to consume and so much TV. I'm sure it'll never end. This summer will never end, and we will have TV to review forever. I'm so glad we get it, and I'm looking forward to more. And we'll see you for that next time.
Thanks, everybody.
We our show's what you know. We'll always watch TV, and if you think we can't, we'll watch more and you'll see. That's why the people of the web believe in Jim from Las Vegas and Jakob from Sweden.